All right, Aretha. We gotta call your friends, tell them to join us. Good, welcome everybody. Happy New Year! Happy New Year! I don't think we've been on since 2024 have started. So happy New Year, everybody. We're gonna give y'all a few minutes to join. Call your friends, share the video. We're gonna talk about a whole bunch of stuff. 2024 is coming out with the pow, pow. We got school board stuff to talk about. Apparently, there's a Katt Williams video that got like 51 million views that's out in these streets. We're going to do a little pop culture today, too. We're going to talk about the
All right.
Republican field of candidates is dwindling. I also heard that ABC had to cancel one of the debates because 45 is like, he ain't coming. So, yes, we got a lot of things to talk about, both local and national and some pop culture stuff, right? So go ahead, tell your friends to log on, come on in, join us, join into the conversation, share the video. We truly appreciate it. So what you gotta say, Miss Aretha?
Happy New Year. And everything that you said, echo to all that. I said earlier that 2024 is going to be the year of performing, bold all caps, means we're going to show up and do what we need to do, versus performing, lower caps, entertaining and pretending. We over that. 2024, Katt says it's going to be the year of reckoning. We'll see about that. We'll see about that. But thank you for having us back again. We always love being with Race and the Races because you keep it real and you talk about it in a way that our community can grasp what's really happening in the political landscape and how that translates into day to day. So thanks, and we about to get some stuff going. We've already upset some folks, and if they think that was something,
I don't know why. Like why people be getting mad at us? Like why they mad?
Truth tellers, honey.
Is that what it is?
Tell the truth. When they say a hit dog holler.
Hit dog holler, but this is a safe space. This is a safe space to come and tell the truth. Like Katt Williams said, didn't he say that? He saw the Club Shay Shay was a safe place for people to come and tell the truth. So this is a safe place for folks to come and tell the truth. So don't be scared to come here. You know what I mean? But I have had a few folks reach out to me and they want to come on. Like, this is an election year. This is a major election year, 2024. We get to vote for the president again. And then there are also some smaller elections that are taking place in the month of March. There are about 5 cities that have elections in Broward County, Pembroke Pines being one of them. This wonderful person that I know by the name of Catherine Menace is running to be one of the commissioners on Pembroke Pines, and it will be a historic win for her if she wins that seat. She'll be actually the first Black person on Pembroke Pines commission. Can you imagine that? Yeah, so it'll be historic. So anybody in the city of Pembroke Pines, if y'all, you can vote there. Make sure you vote for her. She put her stuff out there today. I mean, even though she had declared early on, she's starting to, put things out on social media. There's some elections. People in West Park are running. I know Joyce Smith is running for re-election this year. So go check her out. Y'all got some money. It all helps because, running campaign and running for office is not cheap. So, yeah, definitely. And I will also list the other cities that are running. I just got to look them up real quick because I don't tend to remember all of them. But there are like 5 cities that have elections in March. We have our primaries in August. And then the general election, of course, is going to be in November of this year. So we're going to spend the whole year introducing you guys to all the candidates, all the folks that are running, and then also talk about things that are going on. So some folks are coming in. Keep sharing the video. Invite your friends to come in. Check us out to see what we're going to talk about today. The other thing we want you to do is like, share, and subscribe. Go on to YouTube, subscribe to our channel. Try to get those numbers up because it is some good information. And I really want to just go ahead and make this a platform where people can come and tell the truth and let the people know why they should vote for them. And you come in and learn about all kind of things. All right, so that's all I want to say. So I definitely want to keep encouraging people to like, share, subscribe. Go ahead, comment below anything you want to say, something you may want to see us or hear us talk about. Go ahead and make some suggestions. Head on over to YouTube and subscribe to the channel. And What are we talking about first? We're gonna talk about this police department that happened. Is there something else you want to discuss?
Well, you go ahead and do the intro. I want to know what about this police thing.
All right,
So
so we gotta.
we always got something going on with y'all forgive me. My kids used to say po. And when my grandson was younger, it was so much going on with the police and him just overhearing the news. When we would be at the red light, he would actually jump on the floor of the car trying to hide. We had to really break him out of that because there was so much conflict and there's always so much going on with that relationship with the community and the police. And you know, it's always something. So what we got going on? What we need to talk about?
No, it's so interesting. You're talking about that. You say your son is in a car, not even interacting with the police, and he's afraid. And what the school board wanted to do was create their own police department and have police presence at every school all the time, not just in the SRO capacity. We talking like police officers with like arrest powers and all those kind of things that they wanted to add to the school. And I don't know where they're getting their data from, but usually when law enforcement are on school property, it increased the number of arrests. It doesn't make anybody safer, and it further causes problems, particularly for boys of color. You know, I'm going to say black boys, but it's definitely boys of color. We're talking black and brown, mainly black, Hispanic boys that end up getting in more trouble. So police presence rarely make things safer. They tend to just cause more problems because they haven't worked on the relationship that the police have with the community, right? So if most communities where people have this real toxic relationship with the police or they're afraid of the police, you can't just bring them in there and think things are going to be okay. You need to repair that relationship, address whatever you think are misconceptions about the, law enforcement presence, and then you go and bring them and put them all over the place. But you can't put them, I don't think it's a good idea to put them all over the place and they still have the same reputation and same type of relationship with certain communities, and then now you want to introduce them and you haven't even addressed how it is that people feel about the police, So that's kind of where I'm at with that.
My grandson is he's 10 now, but that was only 6 years ago. He was 4 years old, and we really had to do some serious talking with him and getting him to understand, that he didn't have to fear all police. Police are people like everyone else. They're good and they're bad. And when you're, in a state of emergency, you need to understand, how to conduct and to manage yourselves. So having that conversation with black and brown kids is very real. We can't ignore that our children are exposed to the headlines. They hear this stuff. They hear us talking about it. So unless, like you said, something is done to give them a healthier understanding in that relationship with law enforcement, to just infiltrate the schools with them, I really don't understand how that was going to go over well, especially after the decision to dismantle the Promise program and not have any replacement program in place already. It was as if they were just have no appreciation for their own data. This is not data that was gathered by an outside entity or someone who opposes the idea. This is their information. And when I sat, and you were there in the School to Prison Pipeline Committee meeting just a week ago, this word discretion was thrown around so much. There's so much discretion. I don't understand how our children are expected to comply with any policy or program or understand when they're facing a possible arrest. So how are they going to go to a full blast police force that's employed by the district to come and resolve conflict that could possibly implicate district employees? That right there seems to be a serious conflict, and they don't have anything to replace the Promise program in place. That's very concerning to me.
And so they use the word discretion, right? All right. So even if the person has discretion, if bias still exists, how is discretion helpful, right? Because if the person still has some level of bias or they're biased anyway, that discretion is not going to fall in line to be favorable to the folks, to the Black boys and Hispanic boys and Black girls and Hispanic girls that are making up the majority of all of the discipline problems in the school system, right? They'll bring out the data and they'll show you the chart, and they'll show you 67% of the people who get referred to or to these programs or end up in the office with the principal and getting suspended and all of that are Black boys and Hispanic boys, right? So even if you give some principal or some law enforcement officer discretion, if that bias that made those numbers exist isn't addressed, you're going to still have the same problem. They're going to use their discretion to not send a white boy to the office like they've been doing already, because you're still having the same people with the same mentality make those kind of decisions. So I don't know how any of that makes sense to them. I just don't understand how these people with all these degrees and all these years and years of being part of a system can't come up with nothing better than the things that they're telling us, you know.
And then not only that, Sandra, they're always saying they don't have the money for these additional educational tools for our kids. They don't have the amount of money to pay the teachers adequately. And then they misrepresented the amount of money available in the capital funds to even support bringing on a new police. It was as
not only did they do that, right? So not only did they misrepresent the fact that they had the money, they were actually going to take away money from things that are overdue, like years and years and years and years and years overdue, right? And those things were in neighborhoods, right? Probably most likely in District 5 or probably District 1. So in the neighborhoods where you have all those Title I schools and you have a community that's already underserved, so they were going to take money away from those things that are long overdue to have this police force to on top of that re-traumatize those communities, right? Because that's all they're doing. And so when you were talking about like the police force, one of the things that sometimes we don't think about is that most folks that are in over police communities, they don't have positive relationships with police, because the only time they see them is when they're arresting someone, stopping somebody, harassing someone, they're always doing something. Yes, that's their job, but they don't see them in any other lights, right? And they're always in the community. And if you continue to have that presence, of course you're going to end up arresting more people, because you're always there to see people do the wrong thing, right? I remember I was listening to someone that she's part of the Tennessee legislature. I think she's the prosecutor in one of the counties in Tennessee. And she said she grew up in a neighborhood where they didn't see the police unless they called the police, right? There was no police officer driving around their neighborhood. She's like, the only time we saw police officers is when we called them for some sort of assistance. But when she became a prosecutor in the Memphis area, she was like, they were all over the place, right? Like every time you turn around, there was a cop, and it was shocking to her. Whereas those of us, because I grew up in a neighborhood where the cops were around all the time, right? So I can't even imagine that you ain't never saw no police unless you called them. We see them every time you turn around, at the school, at the corner, at the grocery store, all over the place. And that doesn't mean that in those communities less crime is happening. It's just that ain't nobody over there to observe it, right? And the people who are seeing it probably not going to tell, because they want to protect their family member, their reputation, their neighborhood, or whatever it is. But if the police are all over the place, yes, they're going to see that person that probably did a rolling stop on that stop sign and didn't come to a full stop, which they could have very well leave them alone. But why would they, right? Why would they?
Exactly. And you brought up a very good point, because when we start talking about the schools where we're seeing the data coming out of with these disparities in discipline, they're also concerning with the demographics. So to me, it seems like we don't have the proper response to do anything about the learning gap. We don't have a proper response to explain why we still have so many infrastructure disasters in these schools, in these underserved communities. We don't have a response for why the mental health counseling and all the other tools that we've been promising these communities for decades have not materialized. So the behaviors are seeming to be unruly. So we need to get these poor children in check. These children coming from these homes that are poverty-stricken homes, where they have parents who could possibly be participating in a reentry or rehab program, or we got these kids who are maybe their parents or are not in the picture because of the injustice in the incarceration system, where their parents are more likely to be incarcerated or be subjected to lower wage jobs because of some other systemic racial systems that impacted their lives early on. So it's almost as if their response to all those social determinants is, let's just send the police out there to deal with them. We don't want to deal with it. Get them in check, get the poor minority children in check, because as we also saw, they want to, I don't want to use this to make it seem like I'm referring to the district. When I say they, I mean those folks who are out there who are purporting or supposing that our kids are more problematic than others. They love to paint these pictures that are not an accurate or fair picture of our kids. Mm-hmm. And what we're seeing happening on our campuses is not necessarily a reflection of the children, but it is a reflection of the deficits and the neglect that the people in leadership, and including those board members over the last decades, to give our kids the kind of education opportunities that they deserve. Now, they also, they want to pretend as if, I can't find the right word, but as if our kids are more of a threat, as if the things they do, because it happens with our kids, the threat is way up here. If our kids smoke a joint on campus, it's boom, boom, boom. You got to get arrested. Their kids put some THC in a vape pen. We want to find a way to make the consequence not so great for them.
Don't ruin their future. They have a bright future ahead of them. So what are you trying to ruin their future for? Exactly. Those kids in them other zip codes, who know what they gonna be? They ain't gonna be nothing but menaces to society. So let's go ahead and rid ourselves of that problem right now. Why don't we?
It seems to be that's the mentality, Sandra. Mm-hmm. That that's the feeling that I get, and I pray that I'm wrong, but that's the feeling that I get because they did it in such a rush. And the superintendent's only been here 6 months. He himself admitted when he came out to Parkway Middle School just a few months ago for the town hall, he admitted that he had not spent a lot of time over in District 5. He had not spent a lot of time getting to know the situation in some of these underserved schools. So I'm wondering how just a few short months later, you feel you're in a position to really just be gung-ho. Let's just get police everywhere. How did you come to that decision if you haven't?
But one of the things they said was, and I think like if you listen to that board meeting, the board basically said that they did task him to go get the information pricing or whatever for them to do that. So it seemed like it was something that the board wanted to have happen. And then when they realized how unpopular it was, they were like, dang, well, I guess we gonna say no, right? Because I remember hearing Debbie Hickson say that they did task the superintendent with getting some sort of plan and going out and seeking out how it is that they can, in fact, create this police force, because allegedly it will be cheaper or something like that. I don't know. But the board was for it, because I think she even mentioned that several of them wanted this to happen, and they tasked the superintendent with going to get this information. But everybody from Broward County, I think all the cities were probably represented at that point, showed up there. And you talk about elected officials, parents, people that are in the school system. They were like, that ain't happening. We don't want it. And then they kind of they decided to vote 9-0 against it. So I think he kind of had to take them body blows that day, but I don't think he was the only. I don't think that was his decision on his own. And I'm not necessarily a fan of his, but I think he, they let him take those body blows by himself that day.
Well, I kind of can see where you're coming from, but in his position, he had the opportunity to say, well, let's defer this a little bit. This is the information that I have so far. It did not stop him from spending $46,000
for a PowerPoint.
For a PowerPoint presentation by a former colleague.
That could have paid a whole teacher's salary. That could have paid a teacher for a year.
For a whole year. $46,000 for what? 15 slides? And
that didn't have enough information.
Exactly. Not insufficient information. even if they did task him to do that, he failed the assignment because from the dais, multiple board members
Can they get some of their
mentioned
money back?
how inadequate that presentation was.
Can
So
they get their money back? I'm just asking.
I don't think so. I mean, because you know, when we start talking about these things, I understand they may have been in support of it originally. That it was a favorable conversation that I believe the board members had back in July before he was fully onboarded. So I get that. But if you were told at that level to produce a presentation, I think it would have been understandable that you would have come with actual dollars that were committed. You would have had enough understanding that you got to go to the municipalities, at least talk to the city managers, the mayors. You got mayors and city officials showing up saying no one had even contacted their office. So how was they expecting to? I don't know. I just
it was crazy, and I want to know, like, how is it not a problem that he hired his friend to do that? Like, I don't care if the guy was like is qualified. Well, it don't look like he was qualified, because if he came with a 15 slide PowerPoint and everybody was kind of like, bruh, like this ain't enough information for us to make no decision, then I don't even think he was qualified to do it. Was there like a bidding process? Did they give other folks an opportunity to come to make this presentation? Like, how you get to just call your homeboy, pay him $46,000 to do like a trash job? You know what I mean? Like, that's something that I think should be looked into, because that's crazy talk. Because then if that's the case, I want some friends with some jobs like that could give me, you know, contracts for $46,000. And I wouldn't dare present a 15 slide PowerPoint. If I got paid that much money, I would try a little bit harder. But I think that's definitely something to consider. Like, how is it that they decided on that particular dude to be the one to do that? And then the fact that he did such a terrible job shows that he shouldn't have been the one doing it in the first place. And who else had an opportunity to make this type of presentation? So those are all things that, you know, that is definitely, somebody should be asking those kind of questions.
Because I think we talked about before about the contracts and the opportunity for it to be fair and equitable. How it constantly seems to be somebody that's one of somebody's friend, and oftentimes
somebody that knows somebody.
I'm sorry.
Somebody that knows somebody that knows
somebody.
Somebody
that knows somebody, and oftentimes it ain't somebody that know us in our community. They may be coming to do something in the community, but oftentimes they're not folks from our community or who have a relationship with our community. So, like I said, I just didn't think he had enough information about the needs of the schools, how the schools functions, the community, the neighborhoods, and then made no attempt to become educated about that, which it was apparent when, like I said, when you had mayors, commissioners, city managers, one after another coming up saying, no one has contacted us. So there was no attempt to engage community, even the leaders, let alone the community members,
regular folks, right? Like, who did y'all talk to about this? Yeah, that's definitely a problem. And then the other thing, so they had the the guardians were offended, right? That's the guardians that are in the schools. They were highly offended, right? Because they're like, y'all acting like we ain't making no difference, and you know, we have no value, we serve no purpose, and all that kind of stuff too, right? So that was kind of unfair to them too, considering they've been doing a pretty good job. But then the guys that showed up, so most of them are like retired 2 times already, right? They retired from the military, they don't retire from their law enforcement job, and then now here they're on job number 3. Them dudes was average age 65. You know what I'm saying? They're probably 60. All the grandpas showed up. And I'm not saying that some of the guardians probably aren't young folks or whatever, but there was a bunch of grandpas there that was probably on their 3rd gig, right? Like their 3rd retirement plan. And again, I might be a little bit of a hater. I'm gonna just go ahead and put that up front. I might be a little bit of a hater because I made the mistake of not getting a government job with some real benefits when I got out of school. I went into entrepreneurship, so my retirement plan is trash. Okay, so I'm gonna preface my comment, but that I am a low-key hater for the people that was smart enough to go into government or city or whatever, and they got their 401ks and went into the drop and got their money right for them to retire, right? So I'm a little hate on that. But but the point I really want to make about this is that I do understand those guardians, and they was like, yes, we're doing a good job, but it was a whole bunch of grandpas doing that job. So like, I don't know if something pop off, like how much, like what they were really gonna be able to do.
They recruit because you can't. The same could be said through the recruitment process. How competitive are they going to have to be to bring younger folks into that area, into that arena? Are they really willing to pay what it's going to cost to get young officers employed to do that? I know they were talking about the pay, and it did sound attractive. But still, like you said, when you come, they're not going to be, how should I say, in the Police Benevolent Association, I think that is.
The PBA?
Will they be eligible for the PBA because they'll be employed by the district? So will the district's benefit package and retirement package really truly be equitable long term to attract the kind of folks that they want to attract?
Yeah. And I wonder if they have to go through like the police. I guess they have to go through like a police academy too, right? Because right, wouldn't they have to go through the academy as everybody else and get their certification for law enforcement? Maybe it's going to be a group of young folks or whatever. Who knows? That just wasn't thought through sufficiently for me, right? So it was like a whole bunch of problems with that. But those guardians, they can do it because they're on retirement gig number 3. Okay, and they can afford to live in South Florida because they got veteran checks coming, they got the law enforcement checks coming, and that guardian check is just some extra stuff. So they can afford to do that. So that is some consideration. Are you going to be able to are you going to end up with a whole bunch of new recruits coming in? Because that could be their first job out. They're getting the experience, and as soon as they get it, they're going to dip. So are you always going to have young folks? How are you going to get someone in middle, someone that might have been in the force for 10 years to go and take a position like that? They may only do that if it fits their lifestyle. Like say they got a wife or a husband that's making money and they're like, we just go get that job for the benefits. We ain't worried. Your check ain't really about to do nothing, right? So you're going to have a certain type of folk that's going to be able to take that type of job, considering the pay, how much experience they're going to have. These are all things that, I ain't even get paid no $46,000. And those are considerations that I think should have been addressed in the presentation that were made. What is that going to look like? Again, no diss to the guardians, but they could do that because again, they're on retirement number 3, and I am a hater. When it comes to that,
about what if something pops off, we got to look at the political landscape, because this week, as we're speaking, if I'm not mistaken, there's legislation going through or proposed in the state of Florida to allow 18-year-olds to purchase a gun.
But that was the case. That was the case before Stoneman Douglas. So people are making it seem as though that's something new. It was the case before Stoneman Douglas. After Stoneman Douglas happened, they raised the age to 21. They were actually trying to change it again sooner, but it was so front of mind that people were at the Capitol saying like, hell nah, y'all can't do this, and then they backed down from it. But because there's been those years, they figure, people aren't as hot or whatever, so now they're taking advantage of the fact. So they're taking advantage of a couple of things. The fact that it's not front of mind for folks, and that they have a super majority in both the House and the Senate. So the Republicans can pretty much do whatever they want to do. So the only thing that's going to stop them is if the community show up by the busload and make them feel real crunchy about what it is that they're trying to do and stop them from actually doing it. So this isn't new. It's just that every time they try to do it, it was too much pressure, and because it's not popular. It's no one wants it but the NRA, right? Like those are the only people that really wants that to happen, and so that's why they're trying to push it through again.
And my thing is, we need to be prepared in our schools. I think trying to invest into just abruptly transitioning into a police department, we need to be more realist about the real landscape that we have right now. Because if that does happen to pass, like you say, they have more power and more influence right now to get it done. You are looking at the potential for 18-year-olds to show up on campuses with a gun, and we have no metal detectors.
A lawfully obtained weapon.
Yeah,
lawfully obtained.
A legally obtained weapon. So again, now we also have a permitless carry. So how are you going to address it if the 18-year-olds are now eligible to purchase guns for themselves, have a permitless carry, and we have no metal detectors at the schools. This is something that could be influencing the safety of our campuses right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I think the community would be better served to address those kinds of issues and how you're going to respond, instead of jumping off the deep end and trying to do something that really you need to.
Anybody ask you to do?
It's a longer transition. Transitioning into a private police force. I mean, they made it seem like it was just a matter of fact thing. I think it involves a lot more work, a lot more consultation, a lot more research, and you need a plan of execution. They had no way to say how they're going to even execute it. You can't just say we're going to hire these folks and HR has the ability to onboard everybody. HR has been having difficulties onboarding classroom assistants. They have a difficulty onboarding just teachers. They get folks in the application process who walk away because there are so many bottlenecks in HR. So how are they ready to actually onboard an entire police force? They
don't have the money for it. They don't have the money for it. They can't do it. It's not going to happen. It shouldn't be on the top of mind. And listen, and I'm not saying that safety and security is not of the utmost concern. I'm not saying that shouldn't be on the top of the list. But what I'm saying though is bringing more police ain't the way to solve whatever problems y'all think y'all have. That is not it. That should probably be like number 7. Or number 8 on your list of ways on how it is that you're going to make schools safer and better for children. That should not be the first thing that you're trying to do, is get more police officers, have more weapons on campus. And you guys haven't at all even addressed the reputation that most police officers have in all these communities. And it's going to be the communities that's going to be impacted the most by this police presence. So, I mean, please, that's number 7, 8, 9, 10, not number 1, 2, 3, or 5, 4, or 5. So that pure.
They just don't even know how to comply. Yeah. They don't have a discipline matrix that really tells children how to come to school and avoid arrest.
And so you said that before, and I cut you off, and I was rude, and I'm sorry, but you said that before. So because we're part of this prison pipeline school thing, trying to figure out how they are going to discipline children, right? And every time I sit in that room, all I keep thinking about is like, why is all this responsibility on these children? It's like everything that they're doing, it's like the kids got to figure this out. The kids got to deal with the consequences. And it's a whole bunch of grown-ups that's getting paid, that's supposed to make their lives better, teach them something, whatever. It's like the grown-ups are failing them, but it's only the children that's dealing with the consequences, right? Most of those people, them high degrees, they know what they need to do. Y'all know y'all need to get rid of half of them people that's in the classrooms because they shouldn't be there, right? Then you got these administrators that are no longer effective, and they're just trying to ride out whatever many years they need to ride out because they're waiting on the drop or whatever, and that kind of stuff. So they know they got people that have just past their utility in the school system that are there. And until you continue to, and if you're not going to address this, to me, it's absolutely unfair that you're finding ways to punish children. Like it just drives me nuts, right? Because you got some teacher who left the house in a bad mood. And so if somebody just look at her sideways, all of a sudden, get out of my classroom, you're being disruptive, blah, 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 blah. And then, hear the kid with all of these problems because these grown folks can't seem to get it together. So for me, it's a bunch of adults that's not doing their jobs right? Because you have supposed to have therapists in the school, guidance counselors. You got all these educated folks with all of these special skill sets. Why these kids having all these problems that y'all can't manage? That y'all can't manage. Last point. The other thing that they were talking about too was that when the children are taken out of their schools and sent to one of the discipline centers, oftentimes they don't have staff there that can meet the educational needs of the student that ends up in a discipline center. What you mean? Ain't that a school? Like, what are you talking about? So now you want to send a kid to a discipline center where they can't even get their educational needs met, right? And now, if you got some kid that's bored or they got folks that can't teach them, what what that is. You not only one, you probably got half of them there that ain't got nothing to do because the people can't teach them, don't know their assignments, whatever. That's a whole nother situation where all you're gonna have is a whole bunch of more problems on your hands because you're admitting that you have staff that can't educate these children that you put in the discipline center. How does that make sense? You're gonna take them out of their school and they're gonna send them somewhere that they can't get educated. How the hell that makes sense? How does that make sense?
Does that sound like conditioning children for jail and prison? That's what it sounds like to me. It sounds like the expectation for you, for your future, has already been predetermined. So we're just going to go ahead and condition you to that environment. Education is no longer a priority for you. You just need to get used to
being babysat and behave.
Someone who's going to tell you what to do, when to do it, how to do it. And that's going to be what your expectation moving forward. And I think giving kids that expectation for their future is wrong. Just because a kid is having behavior issues, because a child needs some more intervention, tools and resources that the district promised some of these principals who are dealing with the kids on their campuses. They're dealing with teachers who are experiencing burnout. They're dealing with all this, the situations that happen when you're in an underserved community, when you don't have the proper resources, when you have infrastructure projects that have been incomplete for more years than they've probably been working there as principal. Mm-hmm. So you're dealing with all of these barriers and issues in the schools. And then to say on top of that, that if you have a kid who's having a problem, you're removing them from the campus, sending them to this alternative school for them to basically just get conditioned to be out of school. So what have they done during that time to help them come back to campus and demonstrate the kind of behavior that's not going to be
nothing? Because all they do is making that learning gap bigger, right?
Exactly. You made it more difficult for the teachers to teach, because they're coming back even further behind them when they left if they haven't had access to the equitable education that's been going on in their classroom. They haven't gotten their assignments, if they haven't kept up, if they haven't been made to demonstrate that they are doing their work at this alternative school while they're gone, then what was that time spent for out of class? You haven't given them any conflict resolution training. Mm-hmm. Whatever it was that caused them to have that poor behavior or to do whatever caused them to get suspended or be involved with whatever activity, what have you done during that time they've been out of school to make them help them be a better student when they come back?
Nothing. They haven't done a thing.
So it's like they're conditioning them for jail and prison. You just have this revolving door. It's like you're just conditioning them that this is the expectation of your community of you. You're going to be a problem. We're going to separate you from everybody. You're not capable of being around other human beings that are on your level. So we need to distance you from everybody. We're going to just let you cool off for a little bit, then send you back when we think you're not going to hurt the good.
No, they're going to just piss them off. And half the time when they get sent to those centers, they got to be there for I think 3 to 6 months. Isn't it like they got to be there a long time? Yeah, it's not like they go there for a week or 2 weeks or something like that. When they sent to those centers, half the time they can't go back to their school for 90 to 108. I don't know if it's 180 days, but they can't go back for months at a time. I think it's 3 to 6 months that they can't go back. So they miss out on half a year of school for the most part. Well, how does that even make sense? Particularly if you can't even meet the educational needs of that student. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I would love to have more information about the behavior modification and the academic support when our kids are suspended, because their data, this is not something that we're saying that because we love to throw race out there. Based upon the data from the district, it is our Black and brown children who are going to be more impacted by these.
Are more impacted, not going to be more impacted
by these decisions.
Yeah.
So, are they preparing our kids to be the unslaved labor for the next foreseeable future? The kids on the other side of town, they learn the robotics, they learn the coding, they get the second chances. When they get in trouble, they actually have appropriate intervention programs and resources for them? So are the kids on the other side of town who are being punished because they are raised in conditions that are not their fault, that has nothing to do with them? This is just where they are as a kid. So they're going to be punished and they're going to just be the next generation of unskilled workers. I don't get it. I mean, what's your
Yeah,
point?
no, it's a hot mess. It's a hot mess with all that's happening. So Carla is talking about something that's called SB 7004. So Carla, I'm going to invite you to come on to the show next week in order for us to talk about that in details. I did check my WhatsApp and I saw it, and I saw that it is 26 pages. So there's no way I could look at it while I'm doing the show to have a meaningful conversation about that. So what I want to do is invite you. I'll look at it over this week, and then I can invite you to come on and we can spend some time talking about that, because it seemed to be issue of like great importance that we definitely need to talk about. So we'll talk offline and see how we can set that up, even if it's not next week, soon enough, because they are in session right now. So the House and the Senate is in session. They're deciding what bills are going to make it to the floor. They're there for 60 days. So this is just the beginning part of it, that they're fine tuning and rewriting and updating and arguing about what bills they're going to actually bring to the floor to vote on later in the session. So for sure. And I know that there's some folks that are going to start traveling to Tallahassee in the next week or two. A bunch of different organizations have these things that are called tally days, where they go and they meet with certain elected officials on whatever their issue of interest is and try to get them to vote in a particular way on that issue. So there are a lot of tally day stuff coming up. I was supposed to do one, but I don't think I'm allowed. I was like, I can advocate, but somehow some of that maybe border on lobbying or something like that. I don't know. I don't want to get in trouble because I need these checks that I'm getting. I'm finally trying to get into this Florida retirement system. So, I'm gonna be nice.
I think our first busload of kids from Broward actually arrived in Tallahassee today.
Yeah. So they're going. I know that there are folks coming in because we're on the 17th. Yeah, so they're starting to come. I just know some folks that'll be there next week, and then I know a couple of people that are going to be there for a couple of weeks in February, closer to the end of the term when they're going to actually start voting. So keep it up. Keep up the advocacy work. Carlo, like I said, we'll talk offline, and I'll familiarize myself with SB 7004 in order for us to have a conversation about that. All right. So there's a school board meeting next Tuesday. Who knows what they're going to talk about, because they usually start off. I know they're going to confirm some people, because I got a message. I don't know how I got it. Oh, I think it's one of the groups we're in, that they've got a new principal at Coral Springs High School and Coral Springs Middle School or something like that. So I saw that. So I guess they'll get confirmed next week at the meeting. So there's some different job things that are happening. And then there's a couple other things that they're talking about too. One of the things they want to do is have a 4-day school week. I'm like, how that's going to work for people who don't work 4 days a week? Like, what? Now we got to try to find babysitters for day 5. I mean, like, whatever. So they're talking about all these things, and I really don't think they're speaking to parents about this, right? Yes, you guys want to cut your costs and all of this type of stuff, but it's like, at what price? People in South Florida are not making enough money to live the life to pay for what all of these things are cost. Let me tell you. So I was talking to a friend of mine that lives in New Jersey today, right? One of her relatives was living in Florida. Her rent went up so high, she moved back to New Jersey. Let me tell you, if a person is leaving Florida to go live in New Jersey because they couldn't afford to live here,
that's a lot.
That's a lot. That speaks volume. That's a lot. That's just telling you that this thing is absolutely out of control. If a person is leaving the state of Florida to go back to live in the state of New Jersey because they can't afford to live here no more, it's a thing. It's really, really problematic. And that's a person with a decent job. They weren't working like, minimum wage, anything like that, working for the government, and just couldn't afford it because their expenses went so high, so, these are all things that we'll continue to talk about. So the 4-day, also there's a new, Coral Spring High School has a new principal, and then Carla's talking about the 4-day week for high school students, whatever, 9th graders or high schoolers, people. I have 14-year-olds. I'm not leaving them home by themselves. Like, what do you mean?
And again,
And the uniforms, I don't have no problem with because my kids wear uniforms. I'm a fan. I ain't trying to figure out outfits for every day. So, you know,
And
my
again,
kids always wore
back in
uniforms.
District
So.
5, where
Mhm.
we have 3 elementary schools that are consistently low performing schools. So we're looking at kids, when you look at this household income, they're in lower income households. They're in families where the education level is believed to be lower, according to the data that I saw from the Department of Education when they talked about the grade for Broward County, and they broke down some of those numbers. So again, these children are going to be subjected to fewer opportunities to have their best academic journey as possible. Because, like you said, what's going to happen on that 5th day when you already have children who are below the reading level? We already have children who are academically not where they need to be for whatever reason. It doesn't even matter. They're not there. So how are they going to perform better with a longer day, a longer school day, and a whole day with no defined structure education opportunity available to them?
No, and even like like when I was growing up, we were able to go to summer school. You did not have to be failing to go to summer school, right? We went to summer school every year when I was growing up. And then when we didn't go to summer school, all the parks had free programs for us to go to. Like we all like went to camp. My youngest brother played tennis, right? He he went to college on a tennis scholarship, and he learned how to play tennis at the neighborhood park. Right. Those are the kind of things that was happening when we were growing up. Then, you know, I was in high school when they decided with the Florida lottery, because when I went to school, Florida didn't have a lottery, and they sold that Florida lottery dream. Hold on one second. Go ahead and talk. I think my daughter's at the door. Go ahead, talk. Go ahead, talk for you.
Okay. Well, you're absolutely right. And I'm glad you brought up the summer programs, because now you go, in addition to having one less day a week in a structured environment and in an education environment, also during the summer, the parks may still have those wonderful programs, but I understand that they've withdrawn the funding for the summer break program, which means, as it stands right now, those same children who all this other stuff is being heaped on and resources taken away, who they need more policing, they now will not have an additional opportunity to have access to healthy food. Why aren't we talking about the fact that there's no funding for the summer break program for this upcoming summer? Where is the school board with that discussion? You're talking about investing $57 million to increase policing of the children, but there is no discussion, to my understanding, to support the children during the summer who may not have access to fresh, healthy foods or foods at all. So there just continues to be just this complete and total, I don't know if it's a lack of understanding or what it is, or appreciation, or just not a realist about what our children are facing. And then while Sandra's gone, we're also going to be talking about some of the things that we're trying to do through Save Broward to empower our community to advocate for our children. We really want to get in that space where we can stop looking at the things that our folks and trusted leaders are not doing, and how we as a community can fill in the gap and be more supportive for our children, because it's obvious that they just don't get it. They don't get it.
They don't get it at all. They don't get it at all. Like I said, we went to parks. My brother went to college on a tennis scholarship and he learned how to play at the park. You know, my parents couldn't afford to give him no tennis lessons, and they're taking all of those things away, and they want kids to spend less time in school. It's crazy talk.
It's crazy. And in addition to that, Sandra, I went to summer school every year in high school because I wanted to be prepared to be enrolled in the Future Business Leaders of America program in my senior year. They took away programs like that, the Future Business Leaders of America, the trades program, the mechanic shop programs, these things that gave kids access to skill building in the trades, carpentry. They took those things away from our kids And now they have to, come out of traditional high school and enroll in a technical school to have that additional skill set. And I don't think
Yeah.
that's right. You're
Yeah, they
talking
did
about
have
a
VOTEC.
rare day of learning when you really
Mhm.
need to be broadening the diversity of these kids' opportunities to learn skill sets.
Yeah. Because I remember they had VOTEC from middle school because we had wood shop. We used to have wood shop and all of these things in middle school. Like I
Mhm.
learned how to type in middle school because I guess, well, they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna put you in typing so when you you can become a secretary and you can have a good life. And I was like, oh, that's what you thought I was gonna be. But I'm like, thank you, Lord, that they had me take typing in the 7th grade because when I got to college, I was one of the few people that could actually type, and it was like a game changer. I mean, that saved my because the computers kind of was coming out during that time. I went there with a typewriter, but they taught me how to type because they thought I was going to be a secretary because they would set me up for success, they said, right? But it ended up being helpful when I got to college because I didn't have to pay people to type my papers because you couldn't, submit them handwritten. You had to get them typed, either you do it by yourself or you pay somebody to do it for you. So yeah, but they don't even teach that. They're not teaching cursive. I mean, how these kids gonna sign checks or whatever? I mean, it's crazy all of the things that take out and they've taken out of schools. And for me, it's painful because, like I said, I was in high school when they were convincing people to agree to the Florida lottery because it was going to help education, and that has not been the case. As a matter of fact, they've taken almost everything out of the public school system. You know what I'm saying? But then the lottery program is growing. I don't know if there is some lottery money going into the schools. I can't tell. I ain't see it. Where is it? I don't know. That was the biggest con game put on Floridians was invested in that because we had everything. We had like after school programs. You used to be able to go to school during the day. You could go to school in the afternoon because they had like an afternoon school and they had night school. Like it was all three. I had a friend of mine in high school that graduated in 2.5 years because she went to day school, afternoon school, and night school and just got up out of there. My sister graduated high school early because she went to summer school and all of these different type of stuff, and she earned all of her credits early. But now nothing. They barely, like my high school, we had a very great band. We had a band that performed in the Orange Bowl when one of my younger brothers were in there. Now they don't have a bus to take them to the game. They barely have instruments or anything like that. But again, they sold people this lotto dream to, say, oh, we're going to make public schools better. And that's the absolute opposite of what has happened since then.
Absolutely. And what we're seeing too is you were talking about the typing classes and those type of courses. Now there are technologies that our kids need to be aware of because we can look all around us and see robotics, we see AI, we see all these things that are developing in these different industries. And are our children being prepared to step into those fields of successfully? Are they really being prepared
Man, those
to
things
be
are there to replace
self-sufficient?
them.
You know,
Those
I mean,
things are being
but you go in
developed
the West,
to replace them.
West.
You can't even find the cashier in their store no more, right? They got you checking out all the stuff by yourself.
Thank you.
Those
You
things are there
check
to
out when you get
replace.
there.
Huh?
You checked out when you get there. You
You
already checked
understand? Yeah. Yeah, those things are being developed to replace folks. So like that, all that low skill labor, you gotta do something different because you can't even do that. And even just before that, like I ain't gonna say that part, but I had some of my family members that, because I was gonna talk about like how I didn't have to work I never worked fast food or I did retail for a little, but I never worked fast food. But even like when I go to the fast food restaurants now, it's like it's not even really young folks that are working in there, right? It's like adults, it's like older, like retirees that are working. And those used to be jobs for the high schoolers. Like I remember like people that were in high school, they all did fast food or they did like, retail or whatever so they can earn money. Now you're going to those places, it is like grown-ups, adults with families and older retirees that are working in those places. So young folks need to really be serious and really be careful about how they're losing their place in the workforce. And then when you're doing that, what else is left for you to do? You know what I mean? Everybody's not gonna be able to be Instagram famous. You got to figure out what you're gonna do with yourself because you ain't gonna. Everybody ain't blowing up on YouTube. Like, You don't do it yourself, you know?
Because, and even with their computer literacy courses, and they're not giving kids what I think are an exposure to the software programming and the technology tools that are out there now that's going to put them in a place to be competitive in the workplace, or even be attractive to employers who are coming to the area. For instance, they have this new movie studio that's coming over there at 31st and Sunrise. What's being done now?
The gentrification. Talk about the real things that's happening in Sunrise, girl. You talk about a movie studio.
Yeah, there's a new
taking
movie
over the neighborhood. That's gentrification, girl.
You're right. These low performing schools, the elementary schools, are almost within one. Dr. Martin Luther King Monastery is within walking distance to that site. The other couple of schools are not, elementary schools aren't that far. So my thing is, why aren't you already trying to think about how you're going to transition these children into these new opportunities?
No, they're moving them out of the neighborhood. They're going to price them out of the neighborhood, girl.
You know exactly where I was going, right? You know exactly. So this is not going to be their after school job. This is not where they're expected to go, because they're teaching them the Word program that I knew, the Excel program that I'm familiar with. That's a whole nother generation. There are so many other tools that are out there now that these kids need to know that they should already have as part of their day-to-day homework assignments. If you really want to help them out, give them the tools, the technology, and the exposure that's real world scenarios.
Right.
This is what's really in our community. This is the job market that's coming. Let's prepare these children in a way that they really can expect to be competitive and self-sufficient when they leave school. Not say, let's have them go to school one less day, and the 4 days that they're there, we're going to have more police officers to police them. I mean, come on.
No after-school programs that are free, no summer camp programs that are free, no summer job programs that are free. I mean, just what y'all doing?
Exactly. I really don't understand. This is almost, to me, it feels intentional. It feels intentional.
It's by design. There's an agenda. We might not know what it is, but there's an agenda, And
the people on the board, it's almost as if they've lost sight of the fact that it's supposed to be about the kids.
Oh no, those board members those board members got elected. They had their own agenda for getting elected. Like, they had things that they personally wanted to do, and that's what they got on the board to do. They did not get on the board to do nothing for nobody kids. Like, no. Well, and you can tell that, and they're all on different, they all had their own set of things that they wanted to get accomplished. They may or may not be doing that, but none of their plans was to make sure that Broward County school children get a better education. That is not what they got elected for at all. They had, all of them had a different agenda.
And I'm disappointed of board members like Zeman, who was on the education committee, I believe, with the city of Fort Lauderdale for quite some time. So when he came onto the Broward County Public School Board dais, he came with a wealth of information about the disparities. He understands the challenges that these children in these schools are facing. And I don't see him advocating.
You had faith in him to do this stuff? You had faith that he was going to do something for the children?
I had hope.
You had hope? Okay.
Member, and he came on the dais with all of this history, all of this information, all of the facts and data. And I don't see him sitting on that.
And he had the information about how they could figure out contracts, and they could look out for their peeps too. He had that information also.
Oh yeah, because we didn't even go back to that Hearst Jones. We didn't even go back there. Yeah. Hopefully let it die.
Okay.
We ain't gonna even go there.
Listen. All right. They all had they had their agendas. So Carla's also talking about how the Broward County Public School is going to be selling some property in Parkland to Broward Health. Listen, that's going to have to be conversation for the next week, because we at our 1 hour mark. So Carla, you got to come on. We got to talk about all of this stuff, this 4-day high school uniforms, unified school uniforms. Like I said, I'm mad at that because my kids wear uniforms now. I don't want to think about outfits. All right. But this selling property to Broward Health.
And this development partnership with the Urban League, and they're resizing. We need to also tell the community to look out for those dates for the resizing conversations. So the right sizing of the district staff. when they just hired $180,000 person, and most people that the superintendent said he needed to do his job, now they want to right size and get rid of more people. Maybe it's to pay for that $180,000 salary, or a couple of other friends that they brought on board, or whatever. But we got to have folks to look out for those dates, so you can go to those meetings. You also need to look out for those dates about the repurposing of the schools and the school closures. You need to know in advance if you need to be expecting to send your kids someplace else next school year.
And that's usually if you live on the east side of town, because they ain't bothering nobody over here. And let me tell you, it's way too many elementary schools in my neighborhood, and I know most of them are, a few of them are under enrolled, but they ain't finna close none of them. I'm gonna just let you know that.
You said it.
It ain't right. It ain't right. It ain't right. You know. So, all right, folks, thank you so much for hanging in there with us. Thank you again, Miss Aretha, for coming back. Shout out, talk about your event that's happening on Saturday. I know it may not be open to the public, but talk about it so people can either support you, show up, and how important that is. Talk about what you're doing this Saturday.
If you live in District 5 and you are a parent, a grandparent, or caregiver of a child attending a Broward County Public Schools in the District 5 area, which is primarily the east side of the county, probably I would say maybe from 441 and eastward, sandwiched in between maybe Davie, all the way up to perhaps maybe like Oakland Park area. That's just a general boundary to give you an idea of the section we're talking about, District 5. We're having a PTA. Let me back up a little bit. Grandma, how are you doing? Our grandmas decided that they wanted to be more involved and more empowered to support our youth attending Broward County Public Schools in District 5. They have come together, and we have our monthly brunches, and they've come together in agreement to have a workshop in partnership with Broward County Public Schools Vice Chair Debbie Hickson, as well as the Broward County Council PTA and PTSAs, to have a community workshop where we will learn how to start a PTA or PTO for your children's school. That's going to be this Saturday, starting at 11 a.m. at the African American Research Library and Cultural Center at 2650 Sistrunk Boulevard. Our very own beautiful Sandra Sheffrere is going to be there at 11. From 11 to 11:30, we'll be having community interviews. That's an opportunity for our grandmas and community members to talk about why we want to move forward with establishing PTAs or PTOs in District 5. For those of you who may not know, I think there are only 2 schools who have an active PTA in the area. And we know that when we come together in these organizations, how influential and powerful a good, firm, standing PTA can be, as well as a PTO. So come out this Saturday, learn how you can be a part of this community effort to get some more support behind advocacy for our children. We are no longer sitting on the sidelines hoping that folks will do the right thing by our kids. We're trying to get involved. We need your help. We need the community. We need volunteers. Our goal is to get an active PTA or PTO in every one of our kids' schools, so that our parents, grandparents, any caregiver who is taking care of kids are empowered to be a part of their academic journey in a meaningful way. Right now, you go to kids' schools, you can't have access to information. It's difficult to even be a part of the community activities that they say they're community, but they're still very closed off. And we need to get into these organizations where we can have greater access and know what's going on with our kids. And we believe that starting with the PTAs and the PTOs is a good start. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he once said that we, as the lovers of peace, have to be better at organizing than the people who love war. And I didn't say that verbatim, but that's basically, he said that, we want to learn how to make progress We've got to learn how to organize better than the people who are not working towards the same outcome as we are. And we believe that this Saturday is a significant starting point for 2024. If you want any information, you can email me at Aretha, Aretha, at savebroward.org. That's SAVEBROWARD.org. Aretha at savebroward.org. And we're more than happy to get you registered. Registration is required because we have limited space in the room. So we want to make sure everybody's comfortable when you show up. The PTA is going to be sponsoring some refreshments. So they also need to know how many of us to feed and give us some goodies. We're going to have a book giveaway. Also, I think we're also going to be blessed with folks from Title I who's going to let us know about some additional resources that maybe our parents, grandparents, and community aren't aware of. And if you hang around to the end, we're going to go back to our beautiful sister Sandra with Race and the Races to give our feedback post the event. So we're trying to do some impactful stuff where we can stand in the gap and we can undo some of the stuff that's been done to our kids. This learning gap, it can be reversed because it's not there because our kids don't have the ability. It's because they need folks standing in the gap to get them the resources that they need to be their best selves. They deserve that. They deserve it. They deserve our time and attention.
All righty, y'all. So that's Saturday at the African American Research Library starting at 11 o'clock. The Grandma How You Doing event. Talk about PTAs and PTOs. All righty. So we're excited about that. Miss Carla, I'm going to call you because we're going to have to talk about all of these things. Thank you again, everybody, for showing up and contributing to the conversation. Make sure you go over to the YouTube channel and like and subscribe to the channel, like our Facebook page, make a comment. You can make some suggestions about what else you want us to talk about, but definitely go like, share, subscribe. There's some elections coming up on March 13th in Broward County. I'll be providing more information on that. You know, this is our election year. It's a whole bunch of candidates. Get to know those candidates and who you're voting for. And if there's something that's happening in your community that you don't like, and one of those elected officials who's responsible for it, they don't have to keep their job. They don't have to keep their job, okay? So we definitely have the power to make the kind of change that we want to see. All right, thank you again for indulging us and me, and I will see you all next week. Thank you. Have a good night, everybody. Elections have consequences.